Coming up on One Detroit, we'll tell you about the Jackson Home, a key part of civil rights history that's opening at the Henry Ford's Greenfield Village in Dearborn. Plus, in recognition of Pride Month, we'll show you how Michigan has made an impact in LGBTQ+ history in our Emmy-nominated special report. It's all coming up next on One Detroit.
Across our Masco family of companies, our goal is to deliver better living possibilities and make positive changes in the neighborhoods where we live, work, and do business. Masco, a Michigan company since 1929. Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit PBS.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit PBS. Through our giving, we are committed to meeting the needs of the communities we serve statewide to help ensure a bright and thriving future for all. Learn more at dtefoundation.com.
Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.
Hello, I'm Zozette Gear, and this is One Detroit. The Selma, Alabama home that served as a sanctuary and strategic hub for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders during the 1960s will be open to visitors at the Henry Ford's Greenfield Village beginning this weekend. The Jackson Home is the newest addition to the Henry Ford's collection of exhibits showcasing important moments in history. Bridge Detroit's Micah Walker spoke with the president and CEO of the Henry Ford, Patricia Mouradian, and the curator of Black History, Amber Mitchell, about acquiring and restoring the home.
The Henry Ford in Dearborn will soon debut a new piece of history. The Jackson Home opens June 12th inside Greenfield Village with a weekend-long block party. The home was a planning site for the 1965 Selma to Montgomery marches. Leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr., visited the home in Selma, Alabama, organizing the fight for voting rights.
Dr. Sullivan and his wife, Mrs. Richie Jean Sherritt Jackson, opened up the doors to their home in '65 for the movement towards voting rights in the United States. And so the work that they did in '65, really providing a place of respite, hospitality, a safe place for movement makers to lay their head. The Jacksons had been longtime friends with Reverend Dr. King since their wives were childhood friends. But they had also been an undercurrent of movement making all throughout Selma and really across the South, really starting in the early 1900s and leading up to a really more intense time in the 1960s. And so as the Jacksons became closer to understanding what was going on and how their role needed to play out, they decided that they would take a great personal risk, and that is welcoming Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into their home, as well as other members of the movement. The Jacksons' home is one of many epicenters in the city of Selma and across the Alabama Black Belt of folks who took on great personal risks to make sure that all of us had access to the voting rights that are promised to us as American citizens.
The Henry Ford president and CEO, Patricia Mouradian, shares why Jackson's daughter reached out to the museum.
In February of 2022, Joanna approached us pretty much out of the blue and asked if she could explain to us why this house was so significant. And so she told us the importance of this house on a virtual call. She had this house in her own possession since her parents passed away, and she was trying to run it as a museum for about 10 years. And as she started to think about the future, the significance of this home, she was concerned about where it would end up, since she was an only child and she has no heirs of her own. And so she was looking for a place for the house to go and exist and be cared for in perpetuity. So she did a lot of research and a lot of homework. She knew that we had Greenfield Village, and that Greenfield Village was a place where we preserved and restored significant structures that tell stories that people can immerse themselves in. And so at the end of that call, she basically said, "Patricia, this house belongs in Greenfield Village." And that's when all our work began.
Amber Mitchell, the museum's curator of Black history, worked closely with Joanna Jackson throughout the project, hearing stories about her childhood home and the people who would visit.
I always sit in awe of Miss Joanna as I work with her, work in consultation with her, have gotten to know her very closely over the last several years over the course of this project, is, always understanding that there is something new to learn. I think one of my favorite aspects of working with Miss Joanna is thinking about a person like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who, for me, is this big 3,000 foot tall figure. He's larger than life, right? But for her, that's her Uncle Martin, right? That's her Uncle Martin that shared cookies and bribed her with cookies and had tea parties with her and was really this human being. And so what I'm really excited to be able to bring out in this exhibition is the humanity of our movement makers. That these are not only just folks who took on a role that was necessary, but they were also parents, siblings, children themselves.
What was the process like of transporting the Jackson home from Selma to Dearborn?
The process of restoring this home, the process of deciding whether it could be moved, took us about 14 months from that call. We had to see if it was structurally sound, if it could withstand a move. Then we had to figure out how to move it. The house came with all of its contents, and those contents were significant. The family saved everything that Dr. Martin Luther King touched. The chair he sat in, the dining room table he ate in, the beds he slept in, the pajamas he wore. They saved it all. And so that was going to be moved with the house. What was determined is that the house, all the extraneous parts, the roof, the chimney, the porch, would all be taken off so that it was down to a core box. That box of the home would be cut in half and basically wrapped and put onto a specially built cradle on the back of a wide load flatbed. And we took it up to Michigan in two trips. And then, of course, the roof and the chimney and the porch all went separately.
This is the Henry Ford's first major home acquisition in 40 years. Why was it so important to bring the Jackson home here to the museum?
The idea of moving a home or moving a building, it's not really best practice anymore as far as historic preservation goes. However, in our case, in working closely with Joanna Jackson, we realized that we had an opportunity to help preserve an important piece of American history, one that could potentially have been lost to environmental or financial or economic other outcomes. And so for us, it was critically important to not only just bring this home here, but to have it into perpetuity, meaning that forever, as long as the Henry Ford exists, that home will be taken care of and protected. I think as an organization, it was also really important for us to put our money where our mouth was in terms of preserving African American history. As curator of Black history, I started with this project, and it allows me to also dig into additional stories of African American history that touches all aspects of the Henry Ford's collections now, in the past, and in the future.
Here's what's planned for the grand opening.
We're really excited about the grand opening because we're planning a 3-day block party in Greenfield Village. So the whole village will be celebrating the new addition of the Jackson home to Greenfield Village. So there will be musical performances, there will be a special marketplace by Black-owned businesses who will come in and share what they sell. We'll have all kinds of activities and sights and sounds. The house will be open. We will do a ribbon cutting launch on June 12th. And so we're pretty excited to welcome people to come to that and then to enjoy the celebrations all weekend long.
June is Pride Month, and our special report on Michigan's contributions to LGBTQ+ history has been recognized with a Michigan Emmy nomination. The awards will be handed out on June 13th in Detroit. I was a part of the production team along with my One Detroit colleagues Bill Kubota and Chris Jordan. In case you missed it, here's another look at this story about local LGBTQ+ milestones, including Michigan's first Pride March in 1972.
Ferndale Pride 2025. This stretch of 9 Mile Road helping kick off Pride Month in southeastern Michigan. It's one of the biggest in the state.
So we've been doing this for 15 years now. We're considered one of the big 6 Pride events, and so for me that is kind of our little mark of fame. But we are one of the smallest towns of those big 6. And so now we have these opportunities to show all these people who are like you in one setting and just say, it's okay to be you today. You're gonna find someone else who's like you, and you're gonna have a really good time and embrace who you are.
Jay Spiro owns a martial arts studio on 9 Mile. Ferndale Pride is outside her front door.
It is just baffling to me how much we have been embraced as gay and lesbian people. You know, that these prides are huge now.
It started in New York City, 1970, with the Christopher Street Gay Liberation Day March, commemorating the time a year before when demonstrators clashed with police after a raid of the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in Manhattan. Pride marches would spread nationwide, coming to Detroit in 1972.
When the idea came to the fore in Michigan to have a Pride March and a Pride celebration and start having activities, they named it Christopher Street Detroit. So that's where the name comes from. I should note that Christopher Street comes from the name of the street that the Stonewall Inn was on.
In Farmington Hills, a history lesson for Pride Month. They're hearing about happenings 53 years ago.
And part of this early Pride Week was the opening of Detroit's first LGBTQ community center.
The community center, located in the Virginia Park neighborhood. Tim Retzloff's been collecting this history for years, researching things like this GLF banner that's for the Gay Liberation Front.
It's an heirloom for our community, so it's a really important artifact.
It's on display at the Detroit Historical Museum for the next few months, part of an exhibit about a comic book titled Come Out in Detroit, in which Retzloff drew from oral histories to recreate Christopher Street Detroit 72.
This is my favorite page from Come Out in Detroit because it goes to show just how many people were there. This wasn't 15 or 20 people marching down Woodward Avenue. This was many people marching down Woodward Avenue.
We decided this is the way to tell this story. It's the origin story. That's what comic books are known for, is the origin stories. We know where Bruce Wayne and Superman and Spider-Man come from. It kind of fit into being a comic book that way.
Come Out in Detroit's illustrator is Isabel Claire Paul.
I didn't know very much about it at all starting out, and so getting to do that research and learn that history and have access to all these old stories was really kind of special to me. Pretty heavy topic, but the best way we can get around it is, bringing an air of joy to it. This was the same weekend they went to Palmer Park.
It's really strange to get old, and then what you did in your youth is actually history.
Susan Swope lives near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, but she'd been an anti-war activist at the University of Michigan, then studying law at Wayne State University.
In high school, I realized I was lesbian, but I did not have a word for it. I thought I was the only one in the world. That's what it was like growing up in a small town in the 50s and 60s.
At first, I was pretty closeted, although I might not have said I'm a lesbian. It was clear.
Lesbianism wasn't really up in the front of people's consciousness. Gay men were much more thought about.
You're seeking people like you. Was it hard,
It was very hard. Well, it was illegal. Being gay was actually illegal. So you had to be very much more secreted and closeted in those days. I mean, I was a teacher. Would you want your children to be taught by gays? They'll corrupt their minds.
Having come from the student activist movement against the war, what I understood was the power of acting as a group and of marches and rallies and public protests.
Our whole generation that came from the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement, we were dead serious. The gay and lesbian movement just had we were fighting against oppression and homophobia, but we were also, it was a big party and we were having fun and we were coming out and we were free. And So it was a very different energy, and you can really catch that.
Marilee Melvin helped organize the march.
And it was quite an ordeal to put this together because we were just kind of making it up as we went along.
Were there other things that you were involved in leading up to the march?
It was very helpful to find this press release that I wrote.
The first line, if Michigan gay activists have their way, Detroit will never be the same again after June 24 and 25.
So I am so proud of us. We were reaching out. This was sent far and wide. We were encouraging people to come from all over Michigan and from Canada.
They had matchbooks made. Lots of people were still smoking at the time. That was a way to kind of get the word out. They had stickers made, they had buttons made, they had t-shirts made.
So I came up with the idea for our logo. But the idea was a butterfly with an arm and a fist for the body and the head of the butterfly. And it said, come out.
My friend Susan Swope asked if they would be willing to pay me $25 a week to be an official event organizer. And they said yes. And so I felt like I was the first professional paid lesbian in Detroit.
Marilee Melvin gave the marching orders.
The morning of the march down Woodward from, I think, maybe Wayne State to Kennedy Square, which no longer exists in downtown Detroit, it was raining, of course.
Susan Swope was the one lesbian that we know spoke at it.
My own personal fear was I was still married. And my husband knew I was a lesbian and we were working through that. But I hadn't come out to his parents, and they lived in Detroit. And I was going to speak, and the TV cameras were going to be there. But in the end, what they showed on TV was not the speeches, but the drag queens who had been sitting on the hood of a car, and when the car stopped, they slid off the front of the car. Ha ha.
Christopher Street was a combination of that, you know, we're here and we're queer and we want the laws against us changed because there were still laws against gay men in particular.
For most of us, you know, we didn't fit in. So the march was a place where you could celebrate who you were.
It felt good. It gave purpose to my life. I've always wanted to help people, and here I was helping my own community.
Another speaker at the march, Jim Toy, an Ann Arbor resident active in Detroit.
This is another great picture of Jim Toy. This is more what he looked like at the time.
Toy, already an activist, was part of the Detroit Walk to Freedom March in 1963.
He heard Martin Luther King give the first version of the I Have a Dream speech in Detroit.
Toy was among those protesting the Vietnam War before Christopher Street.
They took part in the anti-war movement rally that was held in April of 1970, and that's where Jim Toy became the first person to publicly come out as gay in Michigan.
And a lot of people have asked him, did you plan to come out in that speech? And he said, well, I wasn't planning to speak and do that day, but I just decided that's what I would do, like just a few minutes beforehand.
I probably said, my name is Jim Toy, I'm 40 years old, and I'm a gay man. Well, I had not thought about the press, and the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News were there, and they published articles, and so I was out.
Jim Toy died in 2022. Born in 1930 to a white mother and Chinese father, he grew up in a small town in Ohio. He married, divorced amicably, and found Detroit's gay community, traveling often from Ann Arbor with a friend.
We called ourselves the Detroit Gay Liberation Movement. John and I, driving in there 2 and 3 times a week for meetings, in his car, said to each other, you know, this is ridiculous. Let's start a group in Ann Arbor. So we did.
Toy's papers are held in the Bentley Historical Library at the University of Michigan, the school where he made his biggest mark, advocating for LGBTQ+ students. In 1971, Toy helped create what was called the Human Sexuality Office.
They had so many people come after them, including regents. There were regents that were hell-bent on destroying that office.
That office is considered the first of its kind, now known as the Spectrum Center.
It's not likely that there was an office anywhere in the world that preceded ours, and we have never learned that there has been.
Jim really believed in the power of institutions to change from within. And he was controversial in this way. Some of the radicals thought, you've got to tear the old institutions down.
Toy kept working, receiving an honorary doctorate from the University of Michigan in 2021.
No one knows how Jim didn't burn out. I mean, it was so draining what he did.
He was a friend to me, a mentor, somebody who was one of my earliest supporters in running for county commission 8 years ago.
Jason Morgan, an openly gay state representative, first took that office in 2022. He grew up in a small town north of Bay City, but moved to Ann Arbor.
Then I found this incredible community in Ann Arbor that wasn't just okay with people being gay. They embraced it and celebrated it, and really supported me as just a human being, as an individual. And I would say didn't care if I was gay, but no, they did. They cared in a really positive way.
Ann Arbor led the nation, observing Gay Pride Week in 1972.
And then, last but not least, in terms of the gay liberation period, Kathy Kozachenko ran as an out lesbian in Ann Arbor in 1974.
Kathy Kozachenko ran for city council and won.
This is my favorite picture from back in that era. This is me.
The first out person to win public office in the nation.
We knew that it was a first, but there's no way that I would have ever thought that I would be talking about it 50 years later. And in fact, my niece Chelsea called me one day and says, "Hey, Aunt Kath, do you realize you have a Wikipedia page?" And I'm like, "What?" So
Kozachenko lives in Pittsburgh these days.
When I talk about that time period, people have to remember that what I'm talking about is a very liberal isn't even the word, radical college campus. So things were different where I was than they were in the rest of the country.
At U of M, she was another 60s activist fighting for better conditions for farm workers.
I found an organization called the Human Rights Party that sort of articulated my passion for economic justice as well as social justice.
2 Human Rights Party candidates had already won Ann Arbor City Council seats in 1972. Jerry DeGreek and Nancy Wexler would be the first openly gay elected officials who came out after they were elected. They spearheaded the campaign for Gay Pride Week, but were leaving office as Kozachenko started her city council run.
Young man, we started talking. He said, "I'm really religious." And I'm like, okay. And he says, "But God works in mysterious ways. I'm going to vote for you." And I said, "Oh, thank you." So I had that instance, and then I had another less pleasant instance, and I knocked on this door, and I talked to these 2 young women, and as I was walking away, I could sort of hear them sort of giggling. One said to the other one, that was her. Did you see her looking at you? Did you see her checking you out?" And but I really wanted to go back and knock on their door and say, it's not like that. You can't transfer the way men react to women with how lesbians relate to women and to relate to each other. But I wasn't brave enough to do that, so I just, shook it off and went on to the next door.
Kozachenko won by 109 votes in a ward well populated by college students. She served 1 term. Since then, there's been more representation in public office. There's Michigan's Attorney General, and in the state legislature, 6 representatives and 1 senator make up the LGBTQ+ caucus.
We are still at 7 today, and that is huge. That is massive progress for our state. And most of us didn't run as, we're just running as a gay person. We ran as community members stepping up to run and serve everybody in our community. But it does matter that we are at the table when decisions are being made and that we are represented.
50 years later, Kathy Kozachenko has a different mission. She's following the deportations of hundreds of people to El Salvador, including gay makeup artist Andre Jose Hernandez Romero.
It touched my heart and outraged me at the same time. This has sparked a passion in me, and it's one way to take a little piece and to say, I'm not going to forget this man.
This June, she's working Pride events like this one in Jamestown, New York. An activist reactivated today.
It's really applicable today, where it's like you have to take care of each other, you have to stand up, you got to start doing stuff to make things happen, otherwise it's never going to happen. And just to say no, hey, you need to treat us better than that.
What would you say to someone who is watching and, maybe has that similar feeling to when you were younger?
Find your people and work with them.
That'll do it for this week's show. Thank you for watching. Head to the One Detroit website for all the stories we're working on, follow us on social media, and sign up for our newsletter.
Across our Masco family of companies, our goal is to deliver better living possibilities and make positive changes in the neighborhoods where we live, work, and do business. Masco, a Michigan company since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit PBS.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit PBS. Through our giving, we are committed to meeting the needs of the communities we serve statewide to help ensure a bright and thriving future for all. Learn more at dtefoundation.com.
Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.